USDA.com/free.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Iran is funding Russia's fight against Ukraine.
Speaking in London, he confirmed that Iran has now transferred ballistic missiles to Russia, and he expects that these are going to be used to attack Ukraine in the coming weeks. He describes this as a critical moment for Ukraine, with fighting intense and what he calls escalating Russian aggression against civilians, civilian infrastructure, and Ukraine's military.
ABC's Ian Pannell in Kyiv. A Southern California mom is facing charges for the death of her 3-year-old daughter inside a hot car. The nonprofit Kids and Cars says at least 31 children have died in hot cars so far this year. It's the dawn of yet another era of spaceflight.
Minutes after lifting off from Kennedy Space Center.
SpaceX nominal orbit insertion. SpaceX.
During its 5-day mission, the Polaris Dawn will attempt the highest orbit with a space capsule since NASA's Gemini era. As the crew capsule was racing skyward, the Falcon rocket that pushed it there was in a controlled fall. And then
the Stage 1 vehicle has touched down.
The rocket will be cleaned up and refueled for a future SpaceX flight. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
In an open letter to the public, Starbucks' new CEO says he plans to focus on improving service and reestablishing stores as gathering places. Brian Nichols says he gets a sense from employees and customers that the company's drifted from its core. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
I'm Bill Walter, KBNU News. News brought to you by Cardalls. A major exhibit that begins on Wednesday will add to the commemoration of the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001. The 9/11 Project exhibit is sponsored by the Major Brent Taylor Foundation and will be on display from this Wednesday, September 11th through Saturday, September 14th at the Hanson Family Sports Complex, 220 East, 2850 North in North Logan. On a recent KBNU For the People program, Jenny Taylor from the foundation said they did the first one for the 20th anniversary, and the support locally from Cache County and County Executive David Zook has been tremendous. Taylor said it's important for the new generation to learn about what happened.
We could pass a microphone around a room of anybody, 30-ish plus. Where were you? What do you remember? Describe it to me. It was a Tuesday morning. I often say that moment for me, and for those of us of that age, will live in our minds the same way December 7th, 1941 did for my grandfather's generation. The same way Neil Armstrong walking on the moon for my mother's generation, John F. Kennedy getting shot. There's certain moments in American history and world history that stand out and define us as a people.
County Executive Zook was also on the program and said that at the time, everybody said they would remember the events.
And it wasn't that we were never going to forgive, that we were always going to remember that anger. That's not what it was about. What we promised to remember was the American spirit that we saw that day and in the days after, of the people who stepped up to serve, the firefighters who rushed in to their death, unfortunately, the citizens who volunteered, the mountains of donations that came in to help with the effort afterward.
Volunteers are needed for setup and breakdown of the exhibit, for parking, for the conducting of tours of the exhibit, and more. Go to CacheValleyRemembers.com for more information. A man was arrested after he allegedly broke into a sugar house business and stole a cash register. 30-year-old Brandon Redenbaugh was booked into the Salt Lake County Metro Jail on charges of burglary, possession of a dangerous weapon by a restricted person, possession of burglary tools, and a Board of Pardons warrant. The investigation started just before 6:20 Saturday morning when 911 received reports of a man breaking into a business. When officers arrived at the scene, they learned a man identified as Redenbaugh broke into a business, stole a cash register, and fled. Officers searched the area for Redenbaugh and, with the help of a drone operator, found him in Hidden Hollow Park, where he was safely taken into custody. And a 5-year-old was hit by a car while on their way to get on the school bus. Riverton City's Josh Lee said the bus was coming to a stop Monday morning, but had not stopped to the point where the stop sign was out. The child ran out into the street to catch the bus when a driver was driving through on the other side of the street. Lee said that the bus driver honked, but the other driver did not stop in time. The 5-year-old was hit by the left side panel of the car. The child was transported to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. KBNU weather brought to you by Quality First Insurance. Matt Robbins has access to many insurance carriers and will give you options to protect your business. Give your insurance package a fresh look. Quality First Insurance, 752-0101. Slight chance of showers this evening, a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms between midnight and 3 a.m. Overnight low in the upper 50s, and then mostly sunny Wednesday, upper 80s for the high. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
Hey, radio listeners, before we get you back to the music, let me tell you real quick about what I did that is saving me a lot of money. I got new insulation in my house. That's right. Now, I know you're thinking, boring, but have you seen the reports lately about how better insulation can save a ton of money on your energy bills? I can tell you it made a huge difference in my home. I mean, not only does the temperature stay perfect, but my energy bill is definitely down. Do what I did. Call Cardall's Insulation, 755-5012. That's 755-5012 for Cardall's Insulation.
The station for Utah State football. News Talk KVNU at 610 AM, 102.1 FM, and online at 610kvnu.com.
The Cache Valley Latino Festival is coming to Logan Center Street September 14th, and you're invited. The celebration begins at 11 a.m. with a parade. Enjoy music and live performances throughout the day. Mouth-watering food trucks and vendors offering handmade crafts. It's a celebration of Latin American heritage and culture that everyone can enjoy. So bring your family and friends and let's celebrate. The Latino Festival is sponsored by Members First Credit Union. Large enough to provide the services you need, small enough to provide the services you deserve. Gosner Foods. The straws are back on Gosner Milk. Pick up some high-quality dairy products at the Gosner Food Store. Anderson Seed and Garden and Logan Extermination, keeping you green during the summer and in the holiday spirit in the winter. Presto Products, now hiring. Apply for a career today at Presto Products in Lewiston. And Connect Public Transit, formerly CVTD, connecting you with the people and places that matter most. Find your route at rideconnectutah.gov. The Cache Valley Latino Festival, September 14th on Center Street in Logan, where culture and community come together.
Fall is upon us and the leaves are changing colors. That means it's time to hit the canyons in style and pack up the whole family for a drive and go see all the sights in the comfort and safety of a new Murdoch GMC Chevrolet or Cadillac. Receive up to $9,000 off select 2024 Sierra 1500 models. When you walk through our doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Chevrolet GMC Cadillac in Logan or online at murdochchevroletlogan.com. GMC, we are professional grade.
Call 888-391-6083 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 9/30/24.
September is National Honey Month, and to celebrate, Cox Honeyland has local Cache Valley honey on sale. Bring in your own jar to refill or snag one of their 12-pound or 24-pound containers. It's also time to make room for fall merchandise. Their fall-summer clearance sale at Cox Honeyland is underway. Save up to 50% off all summer merchandise, including the spinners. Their fun gift store is full of decor, treats, and more. That's Cox Honeyland and Gifts, 1780 South, Highway 89, Logan.
This Saturday before the football game, bring your appetite to the annual Ag Day Barbecue from 11:30 to 2 at Craig Aston Park in Logan. Enjoy this delicious feast, and the proceeds help fund the CAAS student scholarships. Buy tickets at the gate or online at agbbq.usu.edu. The Utah Department of Agriculture and Food and Utah Zone proud to sponsor this year's Ag Day Barbecue, Saturday at Craig Aston Park. Buy tickets now at agbbq.usu.edu or Google Ag Day Barbecue USU.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency, so we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the people on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Tuesday, September 10th. Just a reminder, Cache Valley Remembers kicks off tomorrow, and they are still looking for volunteers. I'm throwing this out right at the start of the show because I had a chance to speak with Mrs. Taylor here in the studio. She is running the Brent Taylor Foundation, and they have brought the 9/11 touring 9/11 Memorial into Cache Valley this week, running from tomorrow until Saturday. And what they're doing basically is setting up this museum inside the Hanson Family Sports Complex in North Logan. It's huge. I've seen it. It is amazing. It is parts of it are difficult to see, honestly. Some of the video that plays on the presentation screens, but also some of the artifacts from Ground Zero. Just, I don't know, it really drives it home. So first off, this is a free event that is amazing, and you should get out and make some time for it. It's kind of a walk-through experience, but they also have these breakout areas. There's even a little bit of a job fair, especially for those in EMS police or interested in EMS police, firefighter work, service work of those types. I don't know. It's an amazing thing, and hats off to everyone involved, especially the Taylor family and the Brent Taylor Foundation for making this happen. But they are still looking for some volunteers. Volunteer shifts are broken up in 2-hour blocks, so it won't kill an entire day. You can volunteer for more than 2 hours, of course, if you want to, but minimum of 2 hours. They need everything from ushers to walk people through and explain some of the exhibits to help with taking it down when it's over, when it wraps up Saturday and late Saturday night. But they also need folks for traffic control in the parking lots. They need folks for manning some of the displays in the stationary areas outside of the walking museum. And they're still looking for, they still have quite a few spots to fill before they get underway tomorrow. So Cache Valley Remembers is the website. I've linked to that on our Facebook page, and it is honestly, this is something to see. So even if you can't volunteer your time to help them out, make time over the next several days starting tomorrow. Visit CacheValleyRemembers.com. You can see a schedule of events and things like that. There are even some outside things happening, but yeah, the Brent Taylor Foundation and the Taylor family behind that foundation have brought the 9/11 project to town. And that kicks off tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It's free and open to the public, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the Hanson Family Sports Complex, which is 22 East, 2850 North. And again, if you'd like to volunteer, click the Get Involved button on the website, CacheValleyRemembers.com. And if you want a little teaser of this, listen to our interview from a couple of weeks ago with Jane Taylor and Cache County Executive David Zook here in the studio, talking about why the county embraced this and brought this kind of hands-on history experience to Cache Valley through the 9/11 project. And again, that kicks off tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., runs until 9 p.m. Saturday night. CacheValleyRemembers.com. Again, if you want to volunteer or just like to look up some more information on that. Joining us later on the show, Attorney General candidate Derek Brown. You may recognize that name, not only from interviews here on our show over the years, but as former chair of the Republican Party. I'm excited to talk to Derek today because Derek is, I'll be honest with you, we have some good candidates in this race. And I'm saying that as someone who usually scoffs at and eye rolls third-party candidates, but Michelle Quist, running as a United Utah Party candidate. She's actually a former Republican. She's been involved with the Republican Party for years, was a Central Committee member for years. She left for this race, basically. She wanted to run, and as she told us here on the show when we did a candidate spotlight a couple of weeks ago with Michelle, that she decided the Attorney General's office has been mired in scandal. 4 attorney generals in a row now at this point. I'm sorry, 3 attorney generals in a row. Sean Reyes, John Swallow, and Mark Shurtleff before John Swallow. All 3 have left office tainted and left the office tainted. Michelle said, having worked with the office as an attorney and knowing, very personal friendships with most of the staff, she said that's what made her decide to run. Now, she couldn't run as a Republican. That field was full, she decided, so she filed and ran as a United Utah Party member, a third party here in Utah, exclusive to Utah, that United Utah Party. And she's a good candidate. And she has done some amazing work pushing back against the legislature's power grab with Amendment D that I'm going to keep urging everyone to vote against, to send a message to lawmakers that we need to stop amending the Constitution every 2 years because they found another piece of power they don't have yet, which is exactly what they're asking you for with Amendment A and D on the ballot, but D is the nastiest. What's going to be interesting about this today is Derek Brown disagrees with me on this. One of the few things Derek and I have ever disagreed on, to be honest with you. So I'm excited to talk to him today, and we'll give him a chance to explain why he comes down on the other side of Amendment D. He's actually endorsed it and is urging people to vote for it. So you'll get to hear kind of a both sides thing today. But we'll also do a candidate spotlight, talk about what he's heard from Utahns as he's running. Derek, I would guess, it's safe to assume, is the Republican nominee after the primary, is the front runner in this race. A third party like United Utah is going to be a long shot. Obviously, it's not going to be the year for Democrats to win. Well, I mean, the Attorney General's race is probably the closest we get to a possible surprise in Utah this year, just because of Sean Reyes being the third Attorney General to have to kind of leave office amidst scandal. For Reyes, it was being caught up in all of that Tim Ballard Operation Underground Railroad stuff and some investigations that maybe he'd had his fingers in that he shouldn't have to protect his friend Tim Ballard, who it turns out is a troubled person, to say the least, and unfortunately took Operation Underground Railroad down with him. They're trying to revive it, but it's just not working. And it probably won't until they change the name and reorganize completely. But Reyes was caught up in all of that and announced he wouldn't run for re-election. He didn't resign, and he also didn't run for United States Senate, which was expected. And that was a big surprise because of the Tim Ballard scandal that he got sucked in with. And so he announced, instead of resigning, he said, I'm not going to run for re-election, basically making it an open field. So you have some good candidates. Democrats have a candidate too, but the guy, in fact, there is a push inside the Utah Democratic Party to get this guy to step aside. I don't even know his name. I could look it up, but I'm not going to on purpose because from what I've been reading, from what I'm hearing, he's not even campaigning. And I've reached out to get him on the show, to be fair, to do a candidate spotlight with him and gotten no response. So I'm not sure what Democrats are going to do in this race, but the supporters of Michelle Quist and Derek Brown both have been urging the Democrat to drop out before ballots go out, which is this Friday. Or excuse me, before ballots are finalized, which is this Friday. And no word yet on whether he's going to do that or not. But there is some random Democrat that's not even really campaigning, so I'm not going to mention his name until he starts campaigning. He doesn't deserve a mention, right? Why file if you're not going to run anyway, or if you're not going to campaign? So basically, it's down to United Utah Party member or candidate Michelle Quist and Republican Derek Brown. We spoke with Michelle Quist a couple of weeks ago. That's on our podcast feed if you missed that. And we talked a lot about Amendment D and why she's gotten so much attention, explaining from a legal perspective how she believes the legislature, why what they're doing is wrong and why people need to resist this consolidation of power. And Derek Brown, again, is on the other side of that. He actually wrote a letter in support of Amendment D that he's kind of got some flack for because I'll be honest with you, there is a lot of public anger about Amendment D in that emergency session a couple of weeks ago. So Derek will have a chance to explain where he's coming from on that, and it'll be fun to talk to him about that. But we'll also just check in generally, candidate spotlight style, with Derek Brown, candidate for Attorney General. Coming up in a few minutes, there is kind of a behind-the-scenes change that didn't get a lot of attention that actually was an end of an era for presidential debates. It's not getting talked about a lot because, again, it's inside baseball. But I want to highlight it a little bit because it raises some important questions about the media environment we all exist in, specifically if you're paying attention to politics or sports, and what that means for things like the traditional stuff, presidential debates. There is one tonight. We'll be airing it here on KVNU at 7 o'clock. Previous to that, when we leave you tonight at 6 o'clock, we'll hand the reins over to our friends at ABC News, and they will take it there for sort of a presidential debate pregame. And then the first, well, possibly the first and only, but from what the campaigns are saying, the first of at least a couple of presidential debates that will play out. Why is it up in the air and undecided? Why isn't there a schedule that was announced way back earlier this year? Why did the originally planned 3 debates that were announced, I think, in March get canceled? All of that has to do with the implosion of something called the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. And their demise earlier this year is actually a story in and of itself. And what it means, I don't know. It could be big. It could be completely unnoticed. And I guess it really depends on how people prefer to interact with their candidates these days at the presidential level. But we'll talk about what happened to the commission right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Are you in need of excellent surgical care? Budge Clinic General Surgery offers the future of surgery with state-of-the-art robotic-assisted procedures. From cancer treatments to surgical needs, they've got you covered. Call Budge Clinic General Surgery today, 435-716-1950, to schedule a consultation and experience the best possible outcome. Trust Drs. Anderson, Marshall, McKenna, and Peterson, the experts at Budge Clinic General Surgery, helping people live the healthiest lives possible.
A big thank you from IPACO Incorporated. We're the proud gold winner for the implement category in the 2024 Best of Northern Utah. We owe it all to our fantastic community. Thank you for 50 incredible years.
Napa's best event, the Gold Filter Sale, now through September 14th. Every Napa Gold filter 60% off. If it's got a filter, it's on sale. Napa's most popular motor oil is on sale too. Napa Premium 15W40, $12 a gallon. This means you can change the oil in your diesel truck starting at $45 for the Napa Gold filter and oil. Mention this ad, get a Napa racing hat with any $50 purchase while supplies last. The Napa Gold Filter Sale at your 4 locally owned Napa Auto Parts from Preston to Providence.
There is no place like home, and there's no better place to spruce up your home than with great remodeling ideas at the Logan Home Show. Here this weekend at the Cache County Event Center. From home automation, security, and remodeling and design, the Logan Home Show has what you need, and they have it all under one roof. This weekend at the Cache County Event Center. Free admission and parking. See more online at LoganHomeshow.com. That's LoganHomeshow.com. We'll see you there.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Presidential debates have been kind of controversial this year, to say the least. The first and only debate so far in June led to the current president, Joe Biden, deciding not to run for re-election, bowing out of the race and opening up the race to his right hand, Vice President Kamala Harris. You obviously all already know that if you've even skimmed the news over the last few months. But that brings us to tonight's debate, of course. Tonight's debate, if you followed, was actually kind of planned by the campaigns. And that's sort of an inside baseball story that I wanted to spend some time on here because it marks the end of an era. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the campaign. Actually, I'll be honest with you. 2 things I've been thinking a lot about watching this presidential election cycle. I'm wondering if we might all be better off, the candidates as well as the public and our sanity, if the presidential race really didn't get underway each year until like July. Joe Biden dropping out kind of forced that a little bit, right? It was a reset. And so suddenly, Kamala Harris is the presidential candidate for the Democrats. And that means the race kind of the race for, your two choices for president on the ballot from the major parties, at least, that didn't really begin until July. Now, I don't know how you'd make this work. You can't ban candidates from talking to news media and stuff like that. And speaking from the perspective of news media, we don't want that because that's content. That's reminding people there's an election afoot. It gets people checking their registration or registering to vote the first time. And so, you don't want a complete blackout on talking about the presidential race. But I wonder if it might be healthier if it didn't really get underway until July. Anyway, that's a conversation for maybe another day, but I've been thinking about that a lot. The other thing I've been thinking about so after that first debate happened, it didn't really play out well for either candidate. And of course, the biggest news was how poorly it played out for Joe Biden, how poor his performance was at that debate. And it raised legitimate questions about his age and ability. I personally think these questions should have been raised about both candidates long ago, but no one listens to me when it comes to the major parties. I send them emails, and they don't take my advice. No, I don't send them emails, I promise. Well, I would. I'm not above it. I haven't. Anyway, so that debate wasn't great. And so I kind of thought at that point, well, this will be the first presidential year in my lifetime when there haven't been at least a couple of presidential debates, usually in September and October before the November election day. And I couldn't decide if I really cared. And that got me curious. I got thinking, are these relevant anymore? Are they? I've long been a critic of the debate format. And I'm saying this as someone who has moderated, hundreds of debates. Okay, maybe not hundreds, maybe 100 over the last 16, 17 years. I've had the opportunity to moderate debates, town halls, panels. They're all about the same from the moderator's perspective. You're basically a glorified clock, and once in a while you have to turn to the audience and shush them if it turns into a high school pep rally to respect the clock so the candidates can speak, because that's why everybody came, not to hear you cheer or boo. And so that's moderating. It's easy. I love it because I get to sit there and kind of gain this firsthand knowledge, including body language and how they respond to unexpected questions from the audience, from the candidates. But I've always wondered how useful a presidential debate is. So separating municipal debates, state legislative debates, county council candidate debates, school board debates, separating those two out from a presidential race debate, I've always wondered how useful these are, because outside of the potential fireworks or, pithy or even catty back and forth that the candidates might get into, which is fun TV, right? It's fun radio. It's fun to hear those little, quips, or if they kind of get into it big time, that can be exciting. But did you learn anything? No. Did anyone watching learn something about either candidate? For example, anyone listening tonight, maybe ask yourself, did you learn anything new about a candidate? Was there anything? And everyone always reminds me, there are these independent voters, these undecided voters, and they don't really decide until the last few weeks. And so they're watching and listening tonight. They'll be listening to our airwaves as we air the debate tonight, and they really haven't made up their mind. And to me, that's kind of foreign, but I recognize I'm a political junkie. I usually know who I'm voting for in an election on filing day when I see the list of candidates, but I know them all. And oftentimes in Utah races, I know them all personally because of this show. And that is extremely atypical, right? Most people have lives and they don't know the candidates personally. They haven't formed an opinion about these individuals before they file to run. And so, along comes the last 2 weeks of October and they've got to figure it out. And so they go back and watch the debate on video or listen to our podcast or whatever it might be. And maybe they do find something. So I try not to completely scoff at the debate thing. But I think it's a legitimate question whether these are actually that useful anymore. You'll hear it tonight on our airwaves, and you can make up your mind. But I worry that it's become sort of not even infotainment anymore. I worry that presidential debates have just become entertainment. And I don't know that that is very useful when the stated goal is to provide additional information about the candidates in their own words and their own behavior on stage for undecided voters to make up their minds. So I've always wondered if there isn't something better. Personally, I'm a bigger fan of town halls. I like unscripted town halls where, the candidates, 2 or 5, however many, have to sit there and you have someone like me, a moderator, or maybe some ushers in the audience to keep things controlled. So it's not just a bunch of people shouting questions at the stage. You can usually do that by just having a microphone that has to be passed around. And they have to answer the questions, but they have to look at a voter in their district or the state legislative district or congressional district, or even if you're running for president, they have to look at an actual voter in the eye as the answer. I prefer that format, but it doesn't work well for live broadcast on radio where we have to keep a clock, and you can't have a 4-hour event that's not planned as 4. I mean, we can do a 4-hour event, but we need to know it's going to be 4 hours. So yeah, I get why we come back. So here's where I land on this. I think when it comes to presidential debates, you could make them useful again with one simple change, which is going back to the actual Lincoln Douglas style debate. That's how it started. Now it's not like that. We still call it a debate, but the old Lincoln Douglas style, every candidate had like this 10-minute period. I don't really know what the exact time frames were, but it was like a 10-minute period where it's sort of like they were in a courtroom and you're trying to convince a jury and a judge. But in this case, it's voters. But you have this 10, 15-minute period where you basically make your case. You build a case in front of everyone listening. And then your opponent gets to cross-examine you for 5 minutes. And then your opponent gets 15 minutes to make his or her case. And then you get 5 minutes to cross-examine them. Again, like you're in a courtroom. And then everyone gets a 10-minute closing argument. So it's laid out just like a courtroom setting. Same schedule, same way, process of going about things. You can flip a coin for who goes first. It doesn't matter really. If we did that, I think debates would be amazing and useful. But until we do that, I wonder how useful they are, or whether it's just entertaining. And I'm not against entertainment, but let's not pretend it's something that it isn't. So with that said, the debates tonight mark an end of an era. I don't know. This kind of made me sad, but at the same time, I don't know if it's just nostalgia or if this will really change anything. But something that hasn't really been talked about is when that debate happened in June, it also meant it was the final nail in the coffin for something called the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. Now, this hasn't been a popular nonpartisan commission for years. Both Republicans, this was established way back in 1987. And they originally would only do these debates on campuses in front of live audiences. They'd never do a television studio or a Fox News or cable studio like they've done. In 1992, they made a change, and the commission began sort of a more town hall style format for the debates. And I loved that. I thought that was good. They were 90 minutes to 2 hours long, and they were broadcast, completely free of interruption. If a television network wanted to run the video, they had to run it without interruption. And it was the audience drove the conversation, not the candidates or the moderator or the cable news network that hosted it. I loved that. They ended that in the early 2000s and went to kind of what we see now, and more of, I think, things becoming more entertainment than informative. And so this year, with the June debate kind of not being popular with either campaign, obviously it played out worse in the media and public reaction for Joe Biden than it did Donald Trump. But neither campaign was happy with how the debate was organized, how it was promoted, all of that. And both campaigns, not coordinating, but both campaigns individually both said, we're done with this. Plan debates if you want. We're doing our own thing. And so tonight's debate was the first debate since 1987 that didn't involve the Commission on Presidential Debates. The campaigns worked out the details and the location and agreed upon. Now, they had organizers and people who, gave them a list of potential moderators who were free tonight. And the campaigns, worked out the details without probably talking directly through a third party as an intermediate. But this is the first time since 1987 that a presidential debate will take place in which it was not organized and had nothing to do with the nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates, which at this point doesn't actually exist anymore. I don't know what it means. It was worth highlighting. And we'll see what the future brings. So we probably won't know what the future brings until the next presidential cycle 4 years from now. But it's been interesting to watch. We'll be back with more of For the People after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News. The judge overseeing the trial of the man charged in the fatal stabbings of 4 University of Idaho students has agreed to move it out of the small city where the shocking crimes occurred, citing concerns about finding impartial jurors and whether the courthouse could accommodate the proceedings. In an order dated on Friday, Idaho 2nd District Judge John C. Judge said extensive media coverage of the case, the spreading of misinformation on social media, and statements by public officials suggesting defendant Brian Kohberger's guilt made it doubtful he could receive a fair trial in Moscow, a university town of about 26,000 in northern Idaho. He did not specify where the trial would be moved. Instead, the Idaho Supreme Court will assign the venue and possibly a new judge as well. The trial is set for June 2025 and is expected to last 3 months. Kohberger faces 4 counts of murder. Prosecutors have said they do intend to seek the death penalty if he is convicted. Utah's real estate market, despite a record-breaking housing boom from 2020 to 2022, is struggling to keep up with demand after labor shortages create more problems. Experts warn that without more construction workers, the market risks becoming even more inaccessible for new buyers as construction labor shortages threaten to slow the state's housing growth. Utah needs more housing, roughly 28,000 new homes per year, to meet current demand, according to Dejan Eskich, a senior research fellow at the Kemsey Gardner Policy Institute. Utah is seen as a growth state, but the housing market is out of balance. From 2022 to 22, developers built more housing in Utah than at any other time in the state's history. By 2030, developers need to build 153,000 new homes just to keep the market where it is right now. However, the shortage of construction workers is limiting how much housing can be built. Many longtime tradesmen have retired, and their knowledge was not passed down. In 2021, more than 40,000 housing units were permitted for construction, but this year that number is expected to fall to 23,000, well short of what is needed. One potential solution, according to Eskich, is factory-built homes, which are already being used in other parts of the world. However, this solution would require new laws, regulations, and training. KVNU weather brought to you by Triton Medical Supply and Transportation, offering non-emergency medical transportation to and from medical appointments, hospitals, or nursing homes. They can transport medical equipment like walkers, wheelchairs, or even a stretcher. Call 435-557-6687 or go to mytritonsupply.com. Looking at a chance of showers and thunderstorms this evening, a 30% chance of overnight storms, low in the upper 50s, and then mostly sunny and around 88 for the high on Wednesday. 30% chance of more showers on Wednesday night. And unfortunately, the flow is going to bring some patchy smoke back into the valley by Wednesday night. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
ABC News, I'm Daria Albinger. Former President Trump and Vice President Harris will meet on stage tonight in the ABC News presidential debate.
The rules of this debate include mics will only be open when it's the candidate's turn to speak. That is very consequential for Vice President Harris. Her team believes that this rule benefits Donald Trump by making him appear more restrained because he won't be able to constantly interrupt his opponent. And Vice President Harris herself, she also thrives when she's able to play that role of a prosecutor and question her opponent.
ABC Selena Dana Wang in Philadelphia. A hurricane watch is in effect for New Orleans as Tropical Storm Francine barrels toward the Louisiana coast with 65-mile-per-hour wind. House Speaker Mike Johnson says he'll press ahead with requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote as part of a bill which would avoid a partial government shutdown on October 1st. Stocks closed mixed today. This is ABC News.
Roof Rescue is your local roof specialist, dedicated to keeping your home safe and dry no matter the weather. Their team of experienced roofers is here to serve you, providing top-quality service at affordable prices. From minor repairs to complete roof replacements, they've got you covered. Remember, your roof is your first line of defense in protecting your family from the elements. So don't wait until the next storm to discover your roof problems. Call Roof Rescue today at 435-999-4268. They're your trusted local roofing experts, here to keep your home safe and dry. Roof Rescue, celebrating 10 years of providing watertight peace of mind.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. A mixed finish for stocks on Wall Street as different issues weigh on investors. The Dow fell 93 points, the S&P up 24, the Nasdaq gained 141. Gains in several big tech stocks like Microsoft and Amazon pulled up the Nasdaq, while banks offset the gains elsewhere. Ally Financial sank almost 17% after its chief financial officer warned borrowers are struggling with inflation, cost of living, and weakening employment picture. Energy producers were hurt by a drop in oil prices. A barrel of Brent crude is near its lowest price since 2021. That's because OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, cut its global forecast for this year and pulled back expectations for next year. The next inflation report is due tomorrow. Analysts expect year-over-year inflation of 2.6%. The Federal Reserve Board will be watching the number closely. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Hey, get prepared for the hunting season. Did you remember to bring your hunting gear, your sleeping bags, and coats into Mount Logan Laundry? With their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, they can do any job. And while you're at it, bring in the comforters and blankets and get ready for the colder months ahead. Try Mount Logan Laundry. For a few quarters, you can use their large-capacity washers and dryers and be done in no time. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. They're at the corner of 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham on the corner of 1st East and 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town.
As you know, there's a presidential election coming up just around the corner, in fact, which can be a very difficult day for the millions of us who just couldn't care less.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. I always kind of feel bad when we play that drop. It makes me laugh. It's just funny. But at the same time, I don't want to encourage people to care less. We already have pretty low turnout in our elections here in Utah, and we need that to that number to go up, not down. But I get it. The presidential election can be a burnout. It gets old fast, right? And they never stop campaigning these days. So it also applies to Congress. But another reason to pour more of your energy into local races. Speaking of that, Attorney General candidate Derek Brown will be joining us. I'm excited to talk to Derek. I'm always excited to talk to Derek. He's a good guy. I think he's a great Attorney General candidate. I said the same thing of Michelle Quist, United Utah Party candidate, when she was on with us a couple of weeks ago. I think voters have great choices, and it's nice to have good choices considering this is an office that has been mired in scandal, 3 attorney generals in a row. Whoever comes in next needs to mean what Sean Ray has promised to clean it up. Not by firing all the staff. They're kind of innocent in all this. All the attorneys that work there, they've just been clouded by their boss over and over again. So not cleaning house, but repairing the public image of the Attorney General's office is going to be paramount for the next Attorney General. And I think both Michelle Quist and Derek Brown are capable of doing that. This will be our first candidate spotlight on Derek Brown, so I'm excited about that. We spoke with him way back in February when he filed and announced. And if his name sounds familiar, that's because he was, for a couple of years, a very popular chair of the Utah Republican Party, which I think puts him in the immediate front-runner position in this race. Though Quist is going to be, she's going to do better than a Democratic Party candidate would. in this race. She's feisty, she's aggressive, and she knows her stuff. So this is going to be a good race, though I would still say Derek is the front runner. I'm excited to talk to Derek today to spotlight him as a candidate, but also to ask him and give him a chance to explain his own words. He and I fall on opposite ends of the spectrum on Amendment D. He supported it, actually wrote a letter saying voters should vote for it. I am never going to shut up until November about all the reasons I disagree and why I think it's time to send a message to the legislature that they need to knock it off. Stop asking us to amend the Constitution every time they want a little bit more power. That goes nowhere good. There are mountains of history books written about how not good that goes. And I think it's time. I think the legislature, so confident they'll be reelected each year, I think they've gotten a little full of themselves. I think it's time for an ego check. And I think every proposed constitutional amendment they've added to the ballot this year, 4 of them, and they've asked every 2 years for the last 12, too much amending the state constitution to give them more power. Amendment D is particularly bad because it's a direct ask for you to give up a constitutional right and instead hand it over to the legislature because they're mad the Supreme Court told them no, the state Supreme Court. So that's where I'm at on it. Derek thinks voters should support this, and we'll give him a chance to, in his own words, not mine, explain where he's coming from on that. So that's coming up at 5:10 today. It's been a dry summer. You might have noticed. We had a really decent spring. Winter was great. Not as wet and the snow wasn't as deep as the year before, the winter before, but it was good. We left winter with, I think it was at the end of May, we still had parts of northern Utah at 160% of usual snowpack. Most of that had dipped down into the 80s and 75% by the end of June, and even further by the end of July. And have you noticed, we haven't gotten a lot of rain. Spotted thunderstorms that have dumped a decent amount over half the valley here and there, or half of northern Utah here and there. We've had days where we got a decent amount of precipitation, but they were few and far between. Not as bad as the intense heat dome years of 21 and 22 summers, but close. And so where are we at is a question I had. And I looked out. I didn't know this, but the USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service actually published their report this month. I missed it by 10 days. They published it on September 1st. And I caught wind of this because they actually did a presentation in Provo yesterday on this for state leaders and water managers. So here's the rough breakdown of statewide reservoir outlook. Right now, there are what are being called reservoir storage, statewide reservoir storage. This is across Utah. Averages of about 77% of capacity. That's about 10% lower than where we were at the same time last month, so middle of July. So it's going down fast. It is the end of the hot and growing season, and so water usage dips quite a bit in September and almost entirely is shut off by mid-October for the most part, when it comes to agricultural water at least. But still a month and a half at least that reservoirs are going to be pretty important for the growing season. Overall, major river basins are in pretty good shape, though. Again, 10% lower than we were last month, down to 77% of capacity. This is, again, statewide average. This is not one specific reservoir or one specific region of the state. So statewide average, the USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service said, is at 77%. Provo, Utah, Lake Jordan Basin, I think that's what it's called, actually dropped the most in the northern half of the state, or excuse me, second most in the northern half of the state at 13%. But the big winner, well, opposite of winner, the Weber-Ogden Water Basin, the Weber-Ogden District, they were down 22% in 1 month between July and end of July, end of August. The Bear River Basin dropped down about 11%. That's our neck of the woods. and the southwestern portion of Utah was at about 12%, down 12%, just over a month. That is, I'm sorry, I said end of July. It's 1st of July. So that's July 1st to September 1st. So again, Provo, Utah, or Provo and Lake Jordan, Utah Lake, the Jordan River Basin, as it's known, down 13% between July 1st, September 1st. Weber-Ogden Basin down 22%, the biggest drop in the state from July 1st to September 1st. More people lived there, basically, and they got just as little rain and precipitation as the rest of the state. So they won on the decrease. And our area, again, the Bear River Basin, down 11% from July 1st to September 1st. So southwestern Utah suffered about 12% loss, and they had the least to spare in the first place. So that 12% hit them a little harder than the Weber Basin's 22%. But everything's still looking okay considering the window is closing on our high water use months. So the top area in the state for reservoir decline is the Sand Pitch Basin at 62. They lost 62% of their reservoir capacity July 1st to September 1st. Runners up, the Twilla, Vernon Creek, and Beaver Basins dropped respectively about 40% each. And the Upper Sevier Basin lost about 31% of its capacity. Again, just July 1st to September 1st. So this shows you how quickly those reservoirs drop from, full and actually releasing water beyond the reservoir because there's no more storage capacity. And then if the rain spigot gets shut off, but the water use need remains, and that rain spigot gets shut off in June like it did this year, you can see how the reservoirs quickly drop down into concerning areas before July is even over in heading into August. But we got lucky. So the monsoon season in parts of Utah was actually pretty decent. Utah statewide average, we got about 2.7 inches of new precipitation in the month of August, monsoon season. That actually, even though those storms were few and far between, that's almost 200% of normal for August. So that actually helped out quite a bit. And so far this year, despite this long, hot, dry summer, as we've experienced it all personally, our year to date, we're at about 105% of normal. So it's still been 5% more wet this year than is average for the state of Utah. So all around, good news for the most part. There is some concern that this is a cycle that is sending us back into the extreme drought and heat dome settings of 21 and 22. That's possible. There are some trends. The scientists with the NSDA said that hint at that, but nothing is certain. And as we saw, not this winter, but the one before, the unpredictable can happen, and sometimes that unpredictable is a lot of precipitation. So no one's panicking yet, is the too long didn't read of all this. If you want to see the full report, especially this nice graphic breakdown of the Bear River Basin and the Bear Lake area, which is fascinating. It shows you the timeline of reservoirs and water levels and precipitation. It's a little animation there on the website. I've linked to the USDA report on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after this.
So, wondering why CVTD is now called Connect? Well, let us explain. We connect James to his job, and we connect Marion to her grandkids' house to play board games. We connect Kevin to the grocery store every week. We connect Dallin to volunteer at the assisted living facility, and Peter to the skate park. Why are we called Connect? Isn't it obvious? Find your route today at rideconnectutah.gov.
It's the final week of the 2024 Top of Utah Parade of Homes, presented by Willow Lakes. Explore stunning, custom-built homes, showcasing exquisite design and architecture. September 19th through the 21st, Platinum sponsors Burton Lumber and Remax Peaks invite you to experience Cache Valley and Bear Lake's finest living. Mark your calendars to be inspired by these beautiful homes. Get tickets at Bank of Utah and USU Credit Union or online at topofutahparadeofhomes.com. That's topofutahparadeofhomes.com.
Here's what some of our patients have to say about how Red River has changed their lives.
So before I started at Red River, I was having a lot of stomach pain. I was overweight, severe anxiety. I had been to multiple doctors. We had done tests and no one could find anything that was wrong. And then a friend mentioned Red River and I went and saw him and it has changed my whole life. I'm sleeping through the night. I have energy for my kids. I've lost 30 pounds. No more stomach pains. I just feel really good.
Our goal is to focus on imbalances that are driving your condition or symptoms, not just give you Band-Aid answers. So when a patient comes to our office, we'll sit down with them extensively and go over their blood work to find out the underlying imbalances driving their symptoms.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER. With offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
Hi, this is Caitlin from Johnny O. Spudnuts. Thank you for voting us Best of Northern Utah 4 years in a row in the donut category.
It's the Battle of Brothers as Utah State hosts Utah.
Obviously a huge opponent next week with Utah, which is going to be an unbelievable environment. I can't wait for Aggie faithful to show up for that.
Saturday afternoon on Merlin Olsen Field, KVNU is your home for the best game coverage. With pregame at 12:30, kickoff at 2:30, and postgame and Aggie call immediately after. It's the Aggies and the Utes. Saturday on News Talk KVNU, the heritage home for the Aggies.
That's it for hour one of today's show, but stick around. Derek Brown, candidate for Attorney General here in Utah, the Republican Party's official nominee after winning the convention, will be joining us. Talk about his campaign, what he's hearing from Utahns, his plans, if elected, on reviving the public image of the office after 3 attorney generals leave mired in scandal in a row. Derek Brown, former chair of the Utah Republican Party and the frontrunner in this race, I think it's fair to say, will be joining us in just a few minutes here. We'll also talk a little bit about flight wars. I'm calling it that, no one else is, but an interesting development here in Utah that could lead to some competition for your money when it comes to direct flights to nearby cities. We've never had anything like this, but it's a reality around the corner. That's next here on KVNU Logan.